I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，参加先鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位的传习鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。I think you will find a lot of good stuff in 69. So let me begin as usual by reading 69 from beginning to end, and then we'll do a quick analysis. Chapter 69 of the Tao Te Ching. In using the military, there is a saying, I dare not be the host, but prefer to be the guest. I dare not advance an inch, but prefer to withdraw a foot. This is called marching in formation without formation, raising arms without arms, grappling enemies without enemies, holding weapons without weapons. There is no greater disaster than to underestimate the enemy. Underestimating the enemy almost made me lose my treasures. So when evenly matched armies meet, the side that is compassionate shall win. So first of all, there's a couple of points in this particular chapter that echo the previous two chapters. So the very last line that talks about compassion, that is the kind of compassion that breeds courage. That is true courage. That is the army, the warriors, the generals that care about something. Those are the ones that will really put their hearts into a fight. And there's also, this is overall continuing the theme of using the military conflict as a metaphor for life. So let me point out the middle part of 69, from line 4 to 5, 6, and 7. They're all in a similar format, doing something without that something. So, marching in formation without formation, raising arms without arms, grappling enemies without enemies, holding weapons without weapons, etc. These lines are notoriously hard to understand, but luckily we do have commentaries from ancient times that illustrate the meaning and make them much clearer. Now, if we look at the Chinese original, we begin to see that, like, really obviously from 5, 6, and 7, the middle character is always the same. This character means without, wu. And in fact, the same character appears in line 4,行无行. So if I were to highlight them in red, it'll show up a little bit better, and it will show us the hidden structure of this particular chapter of the Tao Te Ching. So now, as you can see, we've got the character wu in red from 4 down to 7. And this reveals that the middle part, the middle 4 lines, is actually the second section of the chapter. So we have a beginning section of 3 lines, and we have an ending section of 4 lines. There is another key character that we will talk about in a moment, and that's Bing. So you see it here in line 1. If you look further down, you'll see it in line 7, and you will also see line 10. So it's a recurring character. Bing, we'll talk about that in just a moment. For now, though, we should draw the lines to signify the sections of 69. Okay, so it's time now to talk about the lines one by one. As usual, my guarantee to everybody is that by the time we're done, this chapter should be crystal clear in our minds. And it doesn't matter if you come into it knowing some Chinese, even classical Chinese, or none whatsoever, which I think is most of the people that tune in. By the time we're done, you're going to see how much incredible sense Lao Tzu actually makes. So to begin, let's talk about that key character, Bing. So in the first line, 用兵有言, so using Bing, there is, and then yan means to talk or to say something. In this case, it means a saying. Let's focus on Bing for the moment. So in Pinyin, it's just bing. It's one of the easier sounds for a native English speaker to make. This is not tricky like 这, which is kind of hard for native English speaker to say correctly. So the meaning of this particular character, it looks like a simple character. The meaning is soldier, Bing, and it's often abstracted to mean weapons, because in a sense, the soldiers are the weapons of a kingdom or an empire, or the military in general. So Bing can be generalized to mean the military. So keep these different contexts, different meanings in mind, different definitions. Bing could be soldier, could be weapons, or it could be military. But in all of those cases, they're all related. They're all connected to war. Okay, so where you will see it used very often is 孙子兵法. So what is that? Now, without knowledge of Chinese, you may not be able to recognize those 4 characters, 孙子兵法. So I'm going to break it down for you one by one. And for those of you who are listening online, if you already know what that is, 孙子兵法, please feel free to go ahead and type it out. You can always type it in where there's a place for you to type in your questions. You can type your answers to my questions here. So before I get to this last question here, let me break it down for you one by one. First character, Sun, that is a surname in Chinese. It's a last name. So actually a very common surname. So the actual pronunciation in Mandarin is Sun. It's not really easy to depict that in English. So the closest that people have done is Sun, S-U-N. But the actual original is Sun. Zi, the second character, means a respected master or teacher. So together, Sunzi is what we would refer to as master son, or master Sun if you pronounce it like Mandarin. So Sunzi, master son, was a military strategist who had written a book, a classic on military strategies. And so being same character that we're talking about here means soldier, could be weapons or the military in general. In this case, it just means military. Fa. Fa can be translated in a bunch of different ways. So fa lü would be the law. And in a Buddhist context, when you say fa, that's dharma, that's a teaching. So it could be all of the above: laws, techniques, teachings, principles, etc. In this case, it's strategies for the military. So if you were to translate it as military laws, you might think about military police, laws against desertion from the military, etc. But that's not actually what that book is about. The book is about how to win battles, how best to manage your forces, how best to defeat your enemies, etc. So it's really, the title of the book is actually Master Sun's Military Strategies. So question, can you guess how this has been mistranslated? And I already have the correct answer from online sources, from someone who's listening online, my good friend, Nick. Any guesses here? Well, we do have people who know Chinese here. They're just kind of being modest and holding back. So let me talk about what that is. What is actually a title that makes a lot of sense, Master Sun's Military Strategies. that's been translated as the next slide. Let me go to the next slide and I will show you. The art of war. So sometimes people will add Sun Tzu's The Art of War to it, but these are the 4 characters as you probably recognize. So here I want to talk about the various masters for just a moment. For now though, let me go back to the previous slide and show you again the literal translation. So keep The Art of War in mind and note how there's not a single character here that says anything that has anything to do with art. And the only character here that could have something to do with war is Bing, which soldier, weapon, military. So not exactly the same as war. So this is one of the classical examples of mistranslation. When Europeans encountered ancient Chinese culture and tried to figure out, something about it, they came up with their initial understanding, which unfortunately would stick throughout time, and therefore we're kind of stuck with it. So if I say Master Sun's military strategies, nobody will know what I'm talking about. But if I say The Art of War, people will say, oh yeah, in American military academies, it's required reading for all the cadets. So that's how things are today. Anyhow, among all of these Tao masters, notice that the second character is always the same. Zi. That's a character that means master. So Laozi, the author of the Tao Te Ching, the first character means old, or elder, or senior. So he's the old master. And then Zhuangzi, this is another master. He lived like more than 100 years after Laozi. So he was around that time, but not contemporaries to Laozi. Zhuangzi was the one who taught the Tao as well, but he did it with a whole bunch of stories. In the English part, I'm showcasing different ways of Romanizing the original. So the first Romanization is the Wade-Giles system. This is the original system created by a British scholar several hundred years ago. And this is the system that used to be the common practice. This used to be the commonly accepted system, I would say 50 years ago. So Laozi, and you'll see a similar Romanization up and down, except Confucius, and there's a reason for that. So the Wade-Giles system was not perfect, and therefore mainland China attempted to improve upon it with the pinyin system, which you will see in the second and third part here. The second part is only Romanizing character by character. And the third part is where those characters are concatenated together into a single word. That is the official rule in pinyin, that if you are writing a name and the name is supposed to be a connected thing, it's one name, it's not two things, you have to join them together. I personally think that's not a smart rule because you end up with a lot of strange combinations. You could end up with something that looks like RICE, and you would think, hey, that's rice, but it's actually not. In pinyin, it's something completely different. So Zhuangzi is depicted as Zhuangzi in pinyin, so it's a little bit closer. Chuangchu in the Wade-Giles system is different, is a little bit different from the original Zhuangzi. And then Liezi, that's another master who taught the Tao also more than 2,000 years ago, Liezi. Sunzi was actually even before all these people, so he wrote the Art of War. And then Kongzi, the last one, Confucius. So Originally, when Europeans first went into China, it was the missionaries. It was basically religious missionaries that went there and studied from the people of ancient China. And one of the things that kept coming up was this great teacher that the ancient Chinese kept talking about, Kongzi. So these missionaries, fluent at the time in Latin, gave this great teacher a Latin name, therefore Confucius. But actually, it was Kongzi, K-O-N-G, Kong, not Kong, not like King Kong. So that's so he was actually a contemporary of the other ones. He was at the same time, he was younger. He was a younger man than Lao Tzu, but he was seen as the disciple of Lao Tzu because they did share, you know, the planet once upon a time. Now, one point to be made is that I've had so many people coming to me, teaching me that Lao Tzu is actually old son, or old child, or ancient child, or elder child, something like that, one of those combinations. And I always tell them the truth, that it is completely wrong. It's an invention of the West to say that Lao Tzu, the old master, is also the old son. If I were to talk slang in Mandarin, Lao Tzu, then the same two characters could mean something completely different. Now, in this case, Lao Tzu, it only means old master, does not mean old son. It's not a clever attempt at humor. It's not double meaning. If it was old son, then you have Zhuang son, Lie son, Sun son, Kong son, none of which makes any sense. So these are all used in a similar way. Most recently, I saw a very respected college professor who's taught the Tao for decades now. She wrote a book, and in her introduction, that's what she says. Lao Tzu, old son, old child. Despite the fact that she's an authority, seen as an authority in the field, she's still wrong. And so my presentation at the very beginning about flight, about atomic energy, actually has another relevance for us to point out that the people with big fancy titles are not always right. Okay, so let me leave the topic of the ancient art of war for a moment and then continue on with 69. So let's talk about line 2. 吾不敢為主而為客. I dare not be the host, but prefer to be the guest. There's a lot to talk about with just that one line. So if I were to translate it literally, character by character, one character in Mandarin into one word in English, I get something like this. I not dare be host, but be guest. So obviously that's not going to make a whole lot of sense when you say it like that in English. So to translate, you have to make it a little bit more conversational. I dare not be the host, but prefer to be the guest. So I've got prefer here, which is not explicitly stated in the original, but it's actually strongly implied. And it's backed up by all the commentaries and the meaning of this particular chapter. So let me explain. So first, let's tackle the first character here, just so you guys know. Wu, pinyin, W-U. That's exactly the same pinyin as this other character. And in fact, this other character is pronounced the same way, Wu. And it's exact same sound, even in Mandarin. But the meaning is completely different. This is the ancient form of I. Wu is without or not have, which is still used in modern Mandarin. This is no longer used in modern Mandarin. This still is. However, when people say, when Mandarin speaking people see Wu, they know that it means I, and it's very common. That should not be the cause for surprise. Because if you think about it, we're exactly the same way in the English-speaking world. We know about thou instead of you. Thee, also you. So we don't say thou or thee in conventional everyday speech. It's no longer used in modern English, but if you were to see it, you would know, thou wouldst know what it means. Anyhow, so let me get those points up here. Ancient form of I, no longer used in modern Mandarin, but people do understand it when they see it, just like you don't use thou, but you know what it means. When will we actually say thou? I mean, rarely. Thou shalt not kill. Everybody knows what that means. Okay, so moving on. So there's more to be talked about there. Let me talk about 主 and 客. So that's host and guest. So the idea is that Lao Tzu says, I don't want to be the host. I prefer to be the guest. What does that mean? What does that even mean? Okay, let's break it down. First of all, 主, the owner, the master, like a master of a household, the host, so pinyin, 主. Now, let's talk about the Western conception first. When you think about warfare and host-guest dynamic, the Western conception, the visitor is usually seen as the attacker, the host is usually seen as the defender. So how does that make sense? Well, the host could be the castle, and the visitor is the invading army laying siege to the castle. So because of that, the visitor is moving around, circling the outside of the castle, looking for a place that's more of a weakness in order to attack. Whereas the people in the castle are basically, staying put and ready, being as ready as possible to repel an attack. So that's the idea in the West. The visitor is the aggressor moving around, and the host is the defender, the people in the castle. Therefore, visiting side is the active party, looking for opening, looking for weakness, probing, attacking. The host is reactive. Sits tight, wait for the attacker to do something, and then fights back. Okay. So in the Western conception, the guest is active, the host is reactive. But that's the Western conception. If you were to use the Western conception for this line, you would think that Lao Tzu says, well, I wouldn't want to be the defender. I want to be the attacker. Now, when you study the ancient classical texts in Chinese, you find out that the Chinese had the complete opposite conception to it. So this is where, for those of you who haven't seen my translation and the commentary associated with that, this is where I want to share that with you. Make sure you get the full brunt of the effect. Eastern conception, the dynamics flipped around, and the idea comes from social visits. So the idea actually becomes, somehow it becomes that the host is the active one, is the one that's doing a lot of stuff. The dynamic one, the guest is the inactive or the reactive party. So how can that work? It seems to be the complete opposite of the mental image of the siege warfare that we have. So here's how that works. So think about the last time you visited someone, maybe a friend, maybe a relative. You're the guest. That person that you are visiting is the host. So because you are the visitor at somebody else's place, you are polite, you are sitting around, and then the host is like, can I get you something to drink? Are you hungry? Hey, I got some crackers over here. Hey, want to check out my Xbox? I got a cool new game, stuff like that. So the behavior of the host is fussing around, looking after the guest, make sure the guest is comfortable. Can I get you something else? Are you sure? You look cold right now. Can I get you a blanket? All kinds of stuff happens on the side of the host while the guest is sitting around, reactive. Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you. Oh, yes, I will have a piece of that cracker. That cheese looks really good. So the guest is being reactive. Let me bring up those bullet points. The host is the active side. Make sure you're comfortable. So in the writing, in the original writing, the meaning, as I mentioned, is flipped around, is actually that Lao Tzu says, I dare not be the active party, the one who initiates stuff. The host is usually the one to initiate a conversation. So to what do I owe this visit? So how's it going? What can I do for you? What's this about? Now, the Chinese know this quite well from social settings, and in fact, there's an expression, 无事不登三宝殿. The translation is that if you got no business, you would not be visiting the palace. So, and the idea is that you wouldn't be coming to visit me unless you've got something on your mind. So I initiate the conversation and I ask you, hey, what's going on? What are you here to do? What can I do for you? So the real meaning is that Lao Tzu says that he prefers to react than to initiate action. Or another way to think of it is that Lao Tzu says it would be better to be the person reacting to an attack than the person who initiates the attack. So after all that, this is what it really means. Okay, so in martial arts, this means you're setting up, you're ready for an attack, you block the attack, you react to it, and then you deal a devastating counterblow. Okay, so you can probably all visualize that in your head right now. So what about in warfare? Letting the other side reveal its strength. The other side initiates an attack. You see what they're about, how many people they're sending out, how many horses, etc. So when they reveal their strength, exposing a weakness that you can exploit. So kind of like a bigger version of a martial arts battle between two combatants. So what about in personal life? Well, in life, this means never being the instigator or the aggressor, and be the one who calmly observes, reacts to something that's happening, and indeed be the one to bring about peace rather than the aggression. So for the Chinese, this concept is well known, and therefore there's a particular gesture in martial arts choreography that people have seen many, many times. People in the West haven't seen it until a particular movie came out, and there's choreography by a very renowned Chinese martial arts master who did the choreography for this Western hit movie, science fiction action movie. And then you saw that first bullet in action. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this. Okay, so you can tell, and this is something that's that the choreographer taught the star. Here's Morpheus inviting Neo to initiate the attack. Why? Because he would rather see, how Neo is going to attack, so that he can block it, he can deal with it, and then deal a devastating counterblow, which in that particular scene is actually very well choreographed, spectacular action. And I hope you will use this image to keep this whole idea in mind. Very memorable moment. And this is actually, for many people, this is the first time they actually see this particular gesture. Okay, so let's move on. I also, now I was focusing on basically line 1 and 2, and now we move on to line 2 and 3. So I'm pointing out, first of all, that we've got 2 characters that are repeating, 不敢. And you can see the first, translation is the same, I dare not, I dare not. So let's go there. 不敢拼音不敢, literally not dare. So first character means not, second character means dare. Simple, right? Okay, so question, in line 2, how do we know that's what Lao Tzu actually meant? Dare not be the host, but prefer to be the guest, meaning, how do we know that he meant that he did not dare to be the instigator or the active party, but prefer to be the reactive, the one who watches and waits and then reacts, like Morpheus in that scene. How do we know that's what he meant? Well, it's further explained in line 3. And line 3 says, I dare not advance an inch, but prefer to withdraw a foot. Rather than to advance by attacking, it's better to back away, let the opposing side overextend. So whenever that's the case, and here I'm talking about life, because I think the vast majority of people who are listening are not involved in martial arts tournaments, that are not fighting. You guys don't belong to the Fight Club, right? Well, you say no because you're not supposed to talk about the Fight Club. Okay, so this is not something that's immediately applicable if you're not fighting all the time, but this is something that applies easily to life. That rather than to be the aggressor in life, be the reason for conflict, it's better to observe, see what happens, and then come up with the best possible response to that. So, for instance, if another person was attacking your reputation, with slander, somebody else was giving you crap for ridiculous reasons, then it would be better. To back away, let the opposing side overextend. This is because, even before we get to the reasons, number 1 is because whenever you're in a conflict situation and the other party is expending a lot of energy and you are backing away, conserving your energy, you are automatically in a better position. So one of the strategies that are taught in ancient times is that you want to go forward to meet the advancing army. Having gone forward, there's a clear path going back. So then you let them do what they want to do in attacking while you back away and observe what they do. So then by the time you are ready to counterattack, you know exactly what they're capable of, and you can aim your attack at the places where your attack will do the most good. So, makes sense. Okay, so what are the possibilities of an opponent that is overextended? So, first of all, try to visualize that if this was a martial arts battle and the other party is overextended, that person is momentarily unable to defend himself or herself. Overextended. That's possibility number 1. Possibility number 2 is that this person, this attacker, can become unbalanced and stumble, and that's an opportunity for you. Third possibility, your opponent can trip over himself or herself and fall. You don't even have to do anything. Just in martial arts, perhaps you end up just sitting on your opponent who has fallen to the ground, and you can win that battle without striking a blow. So it's always better to back away. So apply that to life. Let the other person talk. Let the other person cuss and reveal how lacking in class, in virtues, in refinement that person actually is, and let the other person's words condemn him or her, and you don't necessarily have to do anything at all. So that's one of the strategies that we're talking about here. Okay, now we're getting to the essence of 69. We're going to cover everything from marching in formation without formation, raising arms without arms, grappling enemies without enemies, holding weapons without weapons. So 4, 5, 6, 7, these are all in one piece, and they express a thought that's different again than the previous section. Previous section is an advice that says, don't try to meet force with force. When the other party attacks you, whether verbally, mentally, emotionally, whatever, back away, let them do their worst and see what they're doing so that you know what to do by the time you're ready to act. That's a previous section. Here, we're talking more about battles as a metaphor for life. So in your life, the strategies to follow will be 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is a little bit different. So first of all, marching in formation without formation. Let's talk about what that means. 行无行. And so you guys know that typically I'll go through the characters, I'll do the pinyin and so forth. In this particular case, with these 4 lines, it's actually more important for us to get the meaning. So I'm going to go straight to that. So first of all, a march, a military march, is a disciplined, regulated action. So there's a format, there's a specific method to march, and there's a discipline involved. You have to keep moving, and you have to move at a regular pace so you don't tire yourself out. So extend that to life, extend the discipline part to life, and it becomes clear what this is really saying. So here's the observation from Lao Tzu. When people are going through life, they are not marching in formation in the sense of going through life without a concrete plan. They're wandering around. They don't have any specifics. They are just doing whatever they need to do at the moment. They're moving forward. They're not in formation, which is another way to say they're moving forward in life, but without any kind of a disciplined approach. So a Tao cultivator would actually be the opposite from that. As a Tao cultivator, you always have a plan. You always have some thoughts about what you're going to do. You've already spent time thinking about what that plan is, what the contingencies are. So even when things change, you can remain calm and you are prepared for the changing conditions. So that's marching in formation without formation. When everybody else is just wandering around randomly without a really good plan, you want to be the one that sticks to your discipline, that know where you're going and know how you're going to get there. And the plan is that you don't tire yourself out by exhausting yourself running full tilt. Instead, you are going at a comfortable pace that's sustainable for the long term. So this is talking about the journey of 1,000 miles. So moving on. So what about raising arms without arms? Here, the character is B. It means physical arms. When we say arms in English, sometimes you would think about like, I got my guns, I've got weapons, those arms. In this case, the context of arms is actual arms. So raising arms without arms, that doesn't mean that your arms have been amputated. It just it has a specific meaning that's also metaphorical. So in this context, to raise your arms means taking decisive action and getting things done. So when we say in English, oh, he won't even raise a finger to help. Okay, we're kind of using the same language and the same idea, using the hand, the arm, the finger as a metaphor for taking action. When I say, oh, he won't even lift a hand to help or raise a finger to help, I'm not literally saying that he needs to press a button or he needs to do something with his hands. I just mean that he refuses to do something to help. So here, to raise arms is used in that same context, taking action to get things done. So similar to line 4, the observation from Tao cultivators is that, well, most people just do whatever they need to do to survive for the moment. I need a job. Okay, I'll go get a job. I need to go to school. Okay, I'll go to school. So they're not actually thinking things through with a long-term plan, with an idea of where they're going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, etc. So Tao cultivators, in contrast to that, will act in deliberation, will act according to plan. So they will seem decisive, they're getting things done, but it's only because of line 4 that they have a plan in mind, they have foresight, they've thought about this. And now, having seen 4 and 5, it becomes easier to figure out 6 and 7. 6, grappling enemies without enemies, holding weapons without weapons. Let's explore those. So, enemies, what enemies? Well, in this context, it's literally talking about a problem people usually wish to avoid, sweep under the rug, meaning to put off or postpone, procrastinate on, to ignore, pretend it doesn't exist. So that's the enemy, and that enemy actually turns out, in most cases, to be me, myself, and I. Turns out to be yourself. So the person avoiding the problem, the person ignoring the problem or putting it off, postponing it, procrastinating, that's you. So you are your worst enemy, literally. In the Tao, the enemy is most often yourself. So to grapple with the enemy, it then becomes clear. It's to come to grips with a difficult problem, overcome your own inertia. And you can see the relationship between 6 and 7. To grapple with the enemy, to face a problem as you have, is to do something decisively, is to take action in accordance with your plan to march in formation. Okay, so lastly, holding weapons without weapons. Here we see the character being once again. So in this particular case, it just means a tool in life. So the weapon is the tool of the soldier. Here, being is a tool of your life, the appropriate tool, whatever that is. So let's go there. The character being in this context, the right tool for the right job. There are many possible tools that you can use for a particular thing. So a general uses the army to achieve a military objective. You use the appropriate tool to accomplish your objective. So a lot of times I listen to self-help experts, and I find that there's a lot of, the quality varies quite a bit. There's a lot of stuff that's very helpful, and then there's a lot of stuff that's not very helpful at all. I will give you examples of each. One of the examples of something that's been very helpful is the realization that this one particular self-improvement expert says that most of the time, people don't succeed, not because they're not intelligent enough, but because they haven't been given the right tools. So it is as if the job calls for a hammer, but they get a chainsaw. Now, the chainsaw may be really powerful and it can do the job really well, but it won't do the job that you would need a hammer to do. And the hammer is actually a simpler tool than the chainsaw. So I found that to be a good analogy. I want to talk more about it next week, next Sunday. So here, the appropriate tool. So from the perspective of the Tao cultivator, it's about the tool being right and also using it with the appropriate level of skill. If things don't work, it's not the problem with the tool. The tool is not to blame. You really need to take responsibility because you've chosen a tool that is maybe not the best tool available for that particular job, you need a better tool or a completely different tool. You know, not the chainsaw, but the hammer. Or maybe it's the right tool and you just need to learn how to use it properly. So this is the context. The tool using context is the last one of the bunch. And now it's, I think we have time to integrate the question that I received previously. So I think you guys may find this interesting. When we talk about something that's impossible or possible, well, how do you tell the difference? Well, you need to discern the difference. How do you discern? Well, you need to figure out what's good and bad, what's better or worse, what's more correct for yourself, more suitable for yourself. How do I do that? You can just keep asking until you get the heart of it. So to be more discerning is important in all aspects of life. So how do we improve it for ourselves? So there are two vital ingredients on discernment. Number one, detached observation, the ability to take a step back mentally, perceive the situation from different angles without attachment. To be without attachments and observation means that you're not going in with a preconceived notion of what the answer ought to be, and you are willing to let the evidence lead you. Let the evidence lead you to whatever conclusion is the right one. So what's the other part? Well, the other part is intuition. So in the Tao, detached observation is 观察. Intuition is the ability to tap into your natural power to figure out stuff at the subconscious level long before the rational mind catches up. Everybody has it. Sometimes intuition is suppressed. And I'm of the opposite opinion. Rather than to suppress it, I say you should work on it. You should make it as strong as you possibly can. It becomes a tool that you will be able to tap into for the rest of your life, and it's incredibly powerful. Intuition is incredibly powerful. So let's cover those. Let's talk about what those are and how we can use. We got about 5 minutes left. Let's do as much of this as we can. So detached observation. Here, putting out another expression, common expression in Chinese, 当局者迷, 旁观者清, and sometimes it's flipped around the other way, 旁观者清, 当局者迷. Either way, you see the pronunciation down here in the pinyin romanization. This is following this particular order, 当局者迷, 旁观者清. What does that mean? Okay, so first of all, this character here, that's repeated in the two lines. It means the one who, those who, he who, she who. 当局, that means the one who faces a situation, the one who is in front of a problem. 旁观者, that's the person who's watching from the sidelines. Then we just have to decipher this character versus this character, the last character here. Mi means to be lost and confused. Qing means to be clear. So altogether, it says that the person who's facing a situation is confused, and the person who's watching from the sidelines is clear. How does that work? Well, first of all, let me put the translation up. The one facing the situation may be confused, but the one who is observing from the sidelines is quite clear. I probably don't need who here. The one observing from the sidelines. Okay, so originally, this is an expression that applies quite well to Chinese chess. So think about, and you can think of it as just like Western chess. So think about the chess player. When you are sitting in front of that chessboard, you're under pressure, and you are thinking about the possible win or the possible loss of the entire chess match, and at the level of the different pieces, you're thinking about different moves and the gains that you can make capturing enemy pieces, or the loss that you will suffer when the enemy captures your piece. So thinking about that can stress you out, and in that situation, you're not able to really think about everything as clearly as you otherwise would, because you are not relaxed at all. Whereas someone who's watching the match, doesn't really have to worry about winning or losing, can actually be very relaxed, can actually look at what's going on, and therefore will see everything much clearer. And if you are wondering what Chinese chess is, has anyone not seen Chinese chess? Has everyone seen it? Okay. How about those of you who are online? How many people have or have not seen Chinese chess? Let me take a look at everybody's answers. Okay, I'm seeing some no's, and I'm seeing some yeses. Okay, so I think it's useful for me to put up a picture, show you what it looks like. So this is Chinese chess. Chinese themselves will call it 象棋. Now, there are different parts to it. Because we're getting close to 12:30, I won't explain. I'll leave it until next time to explain the different parts of this picture. And I would also relate a story about how Chinese chess came in handy for this one guy who was married to an Asian girl and was trying so hard to fit into her family that whenever he visited, with his wife's family, people are talking their own language. They don't really engage him. He felt like he wasn't really accepted as part of the family. And when he came to me with this problem, I said, I have a solution for you. I will teach you how to play Chinese chess. So let me tell you about that next time. And what's also coming up is last time, I think quite a few people enjoyed my using the Enter the Dragon example about Bruce Lee using the Tao Te Ching or ideas from the Tao to his students. There's actually more. There's another scene from Enter the Dragon that's a perfect fit for what we're talking about. So I'll do that next time. And then, of course, there's going to be the paraphrase for next time. And it is now time to bring the class to an end. So I'm just going to mention that anyone who's interested in Guan Dao, just let me know, and I'd be glad to help you. And finally, the summary. So the summary is, as you can see, the summary is basically just going to be reiteration from the chapter that we have gone through, and the 4 lines that you see, the 4 lines of Chinese characters that you see there are basically marching in formation without formation, raising arms without arms, grappling enemies without enemies, and holding weapons without weapons. Next time, I hope to talk about the Bruce Lee example, which is the art of fighting without fighting. So there's a similar feel to everything we're talking about here. So with these essential 4 ideas, my recommendation for everyone for this coming week, starting with 行无行, marching in formation without formation, always have a plan, always have that discipline that's symbolized by the formation, the marching formation, even if nobody else has a similar discipline or similar plan. You're the one with the plan. Summary number 2 about raising arms, that is, take decisive action even if no one else is taking decisive actions. Number 3, deal with problems, face problems that people wish to avoid, ignore, put off, sweep under the rug, postpone, procrastinate on. And then number 4 is to bring the right tools to bear in helping you accomplish all of the above. And there's another expression in Mandarin that we can bring in for that particular discussion. But for now, though, I think we're good with the 4 items as our summary for 69. Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架3鞠躬，1鞠躬，再鞠躬，3鞠躬，持架规格是1鞠躬，接班1鞠躬。Okay, everybody, we are done.
Participate in the Tao meeting by joining us online. For information, go to taoism.net/Tao